Day began with a digital siege. From the sterile comfort of his California headquarters, Elon Musk had launched an out-assault on President Donald J. Trump's landmark, American Family's First Jobs Bill, to his hundreds of millions of followers on X. Musk was a digital warlord, deploying an arsenal of complex charts, logarithmic scales, and scathing economic predictions. He called the bill a monument to inefficiency, a fiscally irresponsible monstrosity, and a multi-trillion-dollar anchor that would drag the nation to the bottom of the ocean. The media, addicted to conflict, amplified his every post. News anchors spoke in grave tones about Musk's dire warnings. Financial experts, eager for airtime, nodded along, dissecting the billionaire's intricate data points. By noon, the narrative was set. Trump's builders' aimed to bring manufacturing jobs back to the heartland was toxic. It was seen as a well-intentioned but foolish fantasy, and Elon Musk, the visionary genius of our time, was the only one brave enough to say it. The pressure was immense, the momentum seemingly unstoppable. But President Trump wasn't in Washington, he wasn't glued to a screen, crafting a 280-character rebuttal. He was on his way to Warren, Ohio, a town etched with the scars of outsourced jobs and broken promises. He was heading straight into the lion's den for a televised town hall, and everyone knew the main event wouldn't be a question about foreign policy or healthcare. It would be a showdown, the people's president versus the tech titan. The atmosphere inside the high school gymnasium was thick with a mixture of desperation and defiance. These were people who had watched their factories shutter, their main street hollowed out, and their children leave for cities with better opportunities. They had seen Musk's posts. Some felt a knot of dread, fearing the billionaire's intellect would dismantle their last hope. Others simmered with quiet anger. As President Trump took the stage, the moderator, well-known national journalist, wasted no time. "Mr. President," she began, her tone sharp, "over the last 24 hours, Elon Musk has systematically dismantled the core economic principles of your jobs bill. He's presented data suggesting it will trigger hyperinflation and a collapse in productivity. With all due respect, sir, he has the numbers. What do you have?" The camera zoomed in on Trump's face as the nation held its breath. On the massive screen behind him, Elon Musk appeared via live video link, a smirk playing on his lips. He sat in a minimalist, all-white room, looking less like a man and more like a brand logo. President Trump glanced at the screen, then turned to the audience, a sea of anxious, hopeful faces. A calm settled over him. "I heard what Mr. Musk had to say," Trump began, his voice steady and conversational. "A lot of big words, a lot of complicated charts. He's a very smart man, they tell me, but I've found that sometimes the smartest people in the room are the easiest to fool because they get so lost in their numbers, they forget what they're actually counting." Musk's smirk tightened. He was about to interject, but Trump continued, his voice beginning to rise. "He talks about fiscal responsibility. He talks about market dynamics. But this bill isn't about market dynamics. It's about American dynamics," Trump said, his voice steady. "It's about the dynamic of a father being able to look his daughter in the eye and tell her he has a good job to go to in the morning." A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. This wasn't the language of economists. It was the language of their lives. "Mr. President, that's a lovely sentiment," the moderator interjected, her tone cool, "but sentiments don't balance a budget. Mr. Musk's projections are based on hard evidence." "Evidence?" Trump snapped, the fire now in his eyes. He turned and pointed directly at the giant screen behind him. "You want to talk about evidence, Elon? I've got your evidence right here." Scanning the crowd, his gaze locked onto a woman in the third row. "Ma'am, you, right there, can you please come up here?" The woman, in her late 40s, and visibly worn by a lifetime of hard work, looked stunned. Hesitantly, she rose, walked down the aisle, and approached the stage. Trump helped her up the steps, and the gymnasium fell into a heavy, expectant silence. On the screen, Musk's smirk faded, his expression shifting from arrogance to quiet annoyance. "What's your name?" Trump asked gently. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "And what do you do for a living, Sarah?" he continued. "I'm a line worker at the old Packard electric plant," she said, a flicker of pride in her voice. "Third generation. My grandfather worked there, my father worked there, and until a few months ago, I thought I was going to be the last." The audience leaned in. Everyone knew the story of that plant, how it had been on the verge of closing for good. "Tell me what happened a few months ago, Sarah," Trump said. "We were told it was over," she replied, her eyes welling with tears. "They said it wasn't fiscally viable anymore, that was the term they used." She glanced at the screen with a flash of anger. "Then we heard about this bill. We heard you were fighting to keep plants like ours open. The owners paused the closure. They said they were waiting to see if the bill passes, that it would give them the security to stay." The silence in the room grew heavy with emotion. A cameraman focused on an older man openly weeping, while a young couple in the back held each other tightly. The audience was no longer just watching. They were feeling every word. They weren't just watching anymore, they were part of Sarah's story. In that moment, they were Sarah. "So this bill for you, it's not just a piece of paper in Washington, is it?" Trump asked, his voice low and steady. "No, sir," Sarah choked out. "It's everything." Her hands trembled as she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. As she carefully unfolded it, the camera zoomed in to reveal a child's crayon, drawing a small, lopsided house, with a smiling family standing in front. "My little boy, Tommy. He drew this last night," Sarah said, her voice breaking completely. She held the drawing up for the cameras for the world, and for the billionaire on the screen. "He heard me crying," she said, her voice shaking, "and he asked me what was wrong. I told him I was scared we might have to move. He gave me this, and said, 'Don't worry, Mommy, this is our forever house.'" She turned to face the giant screen, her eyes blazing with a mother's fierce, protective love. "This isn't about your algorithms, Mr. Musk. This isn't about your spreadsheets or your stock price. This is about whether my son gets to sleep in his own bed. This is about my family." It was a devastating emotional blow. The audience erupted, not just with applause, but with a raw, cathartic roar of support. They were on their feet, clapping and cheering, many with tears streaming down their faces. The sound swelled into an overwhelming wave of human emotion, force of nature that no amount of data could repel. On the screen, Elon Musk was visibly flustered. His intellectual fortress had been breached not by a superior argument, but by a crayon drawing and a mother's tears. He opened his mouth, then closed it, glancing to the side, as if searching for an escape from the thousand of eyes now judging him. In that moment, he was no longer a genius, just a cold, distant man on a screen, defeated by something he could never quantify: love. President Trump placed a comforting arm around Sarah, letting the applause wash over them. He waited for it to subside, then returned to the podium, his expression resolute, looking straight into the main camera, speaking not just to the room, but to the entire country. He said, "You want to see the numbers. There's your numbers. A family, a home, a future. That's the only economy that matters." He paused, letting the words settle, then delivered the final, devastating blow. Elon Musk can have his algorithms and his spreadsheets. He can have his rockets and his billions. I'll take the side of American mothers and fathers every single time. Our country is a family, not a soulless corporation. The town hall ended, but the story was just beginning. Sarah's testimony became an unstoppable viral phenomenon. Support for the bill didn't just climb, it skyrocketed. What had once been a cold, sterile debate about economics had transformed into a deeply personal, emotional crusade for the American soul. Elon Musk's digital empire of charts and projections had been dismantled by a single, undeniable piece of human truth. The battle for the heart of the nation was fought in that town hall. But what do you believe was the true turning point? Was it Sarah's story, or President Trump's powerful closing words? Join the conversation below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines.